Good morning. Been sitting here trying to think of a topic, and there's only one thing I really want to talk about, and I don't know how appropriate it is. So I'm just going to talk about it and then decide whether or not to post the video. My co-host this morning is Raja. Raja is a rescue kitten. I think she's around 3 years old now. She doesn't like to be held very often, so when she wants to be held, I hold her, or face the wrath of the wife. Last night, I resigned from our HOA board. There's many reasons I resigned, but the number one reason was it was starting to affect my home life in a very, very bad way. Standing at the sink, I yelled at my wife for no really good reason. Couples get into fights all the time. Arguments, debates, whatever you want to call it. It happens. Doesn't happen as much as it used to happen at this point in our lives. But it still happens. But this one just kind of erupted. I've been contemplating not so much if I was going to resign from this board, but how I was going to resign from this board. And eventually, for no other reason than my own mental well-being and the well-being of the community, I just stepped down. Simple resignation. I've discovered over the past 3 to 4 years, took a 6-month break in there somewhere. I served on the board, mostly as the president. The last couple months as just a board member. But as the leadership role of an HOA board, I came to realize very quickly the primary job of an HOA board president is to herd cats. Now, as you've seen in these videos, I'm not too bad at herding cats. I do okay. I throw kibbles when kibbles need throwing, and I give scruffing when scruffing needs scruffing, and I recognize cats when they need attention. So this past year, an arm of the IRS, some kind of division of the IRS, put into effect a rule that would require me to have my driver's license on file and with a management company, or if there isn't a management company, with the HOA office. But in our case, it was with the management company, and submitted to the federal government. I thought that was a step too far, so I refused to do it. I decided not to run for the board last year. From the time I made that decision till the election, they had a judge put that rule on hold, granted a stay. I forget what state, I think it was Virginia. There was a lawsuit and the judge put a stay on the requirement. So I decided to stay on the board. At that point, I thought, okay, well, if the stay, let me back up a little bit. I'm a libertarian. I've talked about this before. I think freedom above all. My driver's license is all over the government. It's everywhere. I have a CDL, commercial driver's license. I have a certificate that lets me go into ports. I have the training for the TSA line of things, so that if something's going to an airport, I'm certified to do that. I'm a hazmat endorsed CDL holder, which means I can haul hazardous materials. There's some extra steps you have to go through for that. You have to get fingerprinted, and I have not a lot of problems with that. I get it. Hazmat, hazardous material. These are things that can be dangerous to the community at large. They want to know who's hauling it. I'm down with that. To have an HOA board member have to submit their driver's license and be on file at the federal level, at the county level, at any governmental level, in my opinion, is an overreach, well beyond what government's purview should entail. Not their business. You're duly elected by your community to represent the community in all things HOA. Now, my running theme while I was in the leadership role was keep HOA dues low while maintaining or improving property values. That's pretty simple. Beyond that, as a secondary goal, we should build community, but not at the sacrifice of property value. That is what an HOA's reason for being, reason for their existence is. Maintain or improve property value. It's that simple. In the leadership role, you herd cats. If you are the HOA president, you herd cats. There are many people from many walks of life who have decided to dedicate some time out of their lives generously to serve their community. I'm not saying all of them are honorable. There are some people that come to the board with agendas to try and get what they want done in the community done, no matter what. Many community members would like a basketball court. The problem is basketball courts have been shown to decrease property value. I personally don't care. I don't have a dog in that fight. There is no reason to do anything in an HOA that brings down property value. And if you can't show that it doesn't bring down property value or doesn't enhance property value, it shouldn't be done. It's that simple. This is the HOA reason for being. Anything beyond that is icing on the cake. You want to build community? Great. You want to have food trucks? Great. Whatever you want to do? Great. I digress. Leadership role on an HOA board is to herd cats. That's it. Try and get the whole board to get along with each other, because there are many people from many different walks of life that have come together to do the job. They saw a need for what they're doing, and they did it. So when I first came to the board, there was 3 people on the board, and the community was very upset because nothing was done above board. Everything was kept secret. Nobody knew what was going on. It was just a big mystery, a big black hole. So a bunch of us got together and got on the board. Now, the board president at the time, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, did things very differently than the people that came onto the board. We took the board over. The people in the group, we went in and we took the board over. And I was astonished, absolutely just flabbergasted that the board, a little of the background here, an HOA board, at least ours did, has an election. The election has people join the board. They're elected to the board. After the election, they go into executive session and they vote for what officers, what board members will fill what offices. So there's the president, the vice president, the secretary. There's another one. This is what age gets you. Your mind gets ahead of your mouth, and then your mouth can't catch up, and then your mind forgets what it was trying to do. Anyway, you got to fill the offices, and that's done in executive session. Executive session is just a private time for the board. So we did that, and astonishingly, the board voted for me to be president, because the good Lord above knows that truck drivers make great presidents. I did okay. I was reelected 2 times, so I did 3 terms as president. I resigned for 6 months. I had some issues. I didn't like where the board was headed, and I had to resign because the board was going in a direction that I didn't appreciate. I thought that there was too much. It was going in a direction I didn't appreciate, so I resigned. I was asked to come back to the board by several people. I was encouraged to go back to the board by a bunch of people in the community, so I did. I went back to the board, and again, they elected me president. I herded cats again for a year. I learned to love people on the board of all walks of life. I learned that certain people are very abrasive in their outward actions, but they are effective at what they decide to do. So just because someone is sandpaper on one side doesn't mean they're not felt on the other. They got the job done. That's all I cared about. I was able to herd cats. I kept these things in check. I made sure, and oftentimes checked with the wife, that I was not overstepping my bounds. I was not trying to do things that were not within my power. Again, the president's primary job is to herd cats. Now, the real power of an HOA board president is to set the agenda for the meetings. That kind of gives the president quite a bit of power, because he can say, and if you use Robert's rules correctly, you can control a meeting so that only your agenda is talked about and moved forward. That's not who I was. As a matter of fact, my very first agenda, I reached out to all the board members all at once and asked, what do you want on the agenda? And that was a monthly feature that I made sure every time was enforced. And nothing, no silliness, no aggravation, no animosity was too small to put on the agenda. If a board member thought something needed to be talked about, it was put on the agenda and it was talked about. Now, this served two purposes. Number one, let's back up just a little bit more. We started streaming the board meetings. That is completely so that everything was open. Everything the community could see. Everybody wants sausage. Nobody wants to visit the sausage factory. But we got to have the sausage factory broadcasted to the community. So we started streaming to the community. Everything didn't work as planned always. We got some audio issues we got to work out. Not everything worked as planned. By the way, very good cup of coffee. I think I'll get a refill. Have to remember to clean that out. So, not everything worked as planned. But the community got to see what we were doing. When there was a problem, when there was clashes between board members, that's how things get done. This is government on the smallest scale. This is the least of government. And I made sure we weren't trying to govern. So, the BOI, which has something to do with the license submission thing, coming back to the forefront. This is the problem with rambling. I ramble. I wasn't willing to send my license in, but in the interim, the judge put the stay on that requirement. So I didn't run for president, and I told them, please don't elect me president, because if the stay is lifted, I have to step away from the board. I don't want to be in that situation where I'm doing all of that stuff. Where I have that much responsibility and I have to leave the board in the lurch. So I took a lesser role. Now, they did make me pool chair, which is one of the most extreme positions. There's a lot of responsibility for that. I was okay with that. The pool opens on May 1st. Quite a bit of time between now and then. I was good with that. I figured if they lifted the stay and the requirement was reinstated, I could step away from the board and someone else could take over. That's why I didn't run for president, and I asked them not to make me president. It was the responsible thing to do. Drinking coffee is a responsible thing to do. Here's to responsibility. Well, through executive order, the new president has done away with that requirement. It's gone. It's an unfortunate timing of that executive order because the new board is in upheaval. Herding cats. You have to disengage. You cannot pick a side. You cannot take control and do what you want when you want. For instance, if a board votes, 9 members on a board, if a board majority votes that the meeting time will be 6:30, then the meeting time is 6:30. You can't arbitrarily decide the meeting time will be 7 o'clock. And if you forgot that there was a vote about that, you're not doing your job. That tiny thing, that little exercise of overreach is an indictment that I can't abide. That's very specific. And I'm sure the person that did this now understands what I'm talking about. You have to herd the cats. Also, this isn't a business. You can't fire people. You can throw them off the board. It wouldn't be very politic to do so. But this isn't a business. This isn't a board that controls a business. Not per se. I mean, it is a business, but it's not a traditional business. It's not a money-making business. It is a business to maintain property values. Board members have a vested interest in their property values, but you have to make sure that that vested interest is only in property values and community and not in a personal agenda. This is something that really hit home with me, and this video that I'm creating right now is kind of me letting go, because last night I resigned. I can't be a party to a board that I'm not helping the community with, and I can't let go. How do I put this? I can't abide somebody making accusations that are unfounded and then defending them just because they don't want to be wrong. I've apologized to the community before. I've apologized to specific board members, and I've apologized to the board as a whole through these last 3 years. I've done things I didn't want to do to make sure the board kept running smoothly. The board's not running smoothly right now. The board doesn't know the history. There are many people on the board that I have come to love. There are many people on the board right now that I'm angry at and still love. It is a hard thing to let go of what you built. We put together a good system. We have a board that was functioning well. And in 2 months, it has fallen apart. I have many fears of what the new board may do. We've talked about selling our house and leaving the community. I'm an old country boy. I was raised in a small county in Georgia. We had chickens. Hell, at one point we had a goat and a pony. That pony was mean. He would bite you. That's why his name was Trouble. I'm not a stranger to the farm life. Once a year we would cut off chicken heads. My father showed me how to do it. This HOA thing was a new thing to me. I lived in a townhouse once which also had an HOA, but it was a very inactive HOA. They did very little. I resigned last night. I have had a weight lifted off of my shoulders. I'm not going back ever. This is the last 4 months. So November, December, January, and February have been quite a nightmare. And the cats were unhurtable. November and December, I was able to get things calmed down, at least so we could get the job done. We're not doing anything now. Well, I'm not doing anything. I resigned last night. But it's done. I certainly hope that personal agendas don't get in the way of doing the right thing for the community. I wish nothing but the best for the current board. I certainly hope that everything gets done that needs to get done. Sometimes you just have to stop and drink some coffee. I don't know that I want to burn any bridges. As I said, I love my community. I've learned things by being in an HOA that I wouldn't have learned had I not been in HOA. But I've also learned some things about people that kind of astonished me and burst my bubble. My bubble of rose-colored glasses. There you go. Instead of bursting bubble, how about that? My rose-colored glasses have been broken. I see a lot of things for what they actually are now. What can you do? This is life. But we must persevere. So, have a good cup of coffee and go out and persevere. How's that for a sign off? Until next time.